So I think we can all agree that sequels are very hit or miss, because while you have your Across the Spider-Verses, you also have your Shazam 2s. So just heads up that this is more for the worst that I've seen, and not so much the ones you'd find on a BuzzFeed list. So I guess I clickbaited you, but since you're here, might as well listen to the worst sequels that I've seen. So like a lot of people, I'm a massive fan of the Lego Movie because I think it's a very great subversion of what people actually thought the concept of this movie would have been, which is just a giant Lego ad for kids to make their parents go broke. But it turned out to be a great commentary on how corporatism kills creativity. But then the sequel was just really meh. This wasn't good. Okay. If it wasn't a sequel to the Lego Movie, which I think is a great feat of writing, directing, and subverting expectations of the audience, which go figure, the first was directed and written by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. But then the sequel wasn't directed by them, and they only took the writer's position. And man, what the fuck were these two writing? Look, Phil Lord and Chris Miller are giant pieces of shit, especially with how they treated their animators on Across the Spider-Verse. But you can't deny how good some of their works are, and God, I hate giving these pieces of shit spotlight, especially considering how they treated those people. But okay, we're moving on from them because I can't exactly say anything nice about them. I just think this movie kind of lacks the charm that the first did, and it's also just not as funny as well. And look, I don't like this as much as the first, but it's not as bad as some of the others I have on this list. So I like the Pirates movies. I think this franchise is just really good, dumb fun with some really good CGI and practical effects, and multiple iconic performances from Johnny Depp. But man, out of all the sequels from this franchise, this is probably my least favorite. Because one, this was a way too long of a movie. And I've seen movies that are long, and I like a couple, with my favorites being Green Mile and The Wolf of Wall Street. But anyways, back to the movie at hand. I'm gonna say out of all the Pirates movie, this was probably the poorest executed, with characters like Elizabeth becoming a pirate lord, which, really? Elizabeth, who was one of the poshest characters who relied on her wits to outsmart people, you make her a pirate lord. Don't you think that's a little bit of a stretch? I don't know. For me, this is also just the weakest of the sequels because unlike the first, second, and fifth, there's just really no goofy scenes that made the pirate movies stand out and what made them such good fun.
What you gonna do, big guy? Shit on me?
Yeah.
Order up.
Jesus Christ, this movie really pisses me off. So I'm a fan of Kung Fu Panda's trilogy, and this movie's existence really pisses me off, considering it ruined a trilogy that, while it's not perfect, but it was a very damn good one. That even the third, which was the weakest, was at least still managed to not feel like it didn't belong to the trilogy and didn't feel like a giant cash grab. Then the fourth one said, nah, you thought this shit was going to be meaningful. Watch me take a shit on this franchise legacy. I cannot express how much this movie felt like a cash grab. How much this movie felt like it had no soul behind it. How much you shit on the OG villains by one, using them as nostalgia bait, and then making them bow down to Poe, who frankly did not even fucking earn it. Not including the Furious Five, who you think might have made sense to have included in this one, considering that the plot is Poe figuring out who is going to be a worthy predecessor as the Dragon Warrior. I cannot stress how much I really hate this sequel.
You betrayed yourself. No, Optimus!
Oh my sweet Jesus, I have seen more bad movies than I thought. Now, this movie really irks me because of how bad this movie was set up from a technical aspect. Because I'm happy I wasn't the only one who noticed this, because in Pointless Hub's video over the Transformers movies, and the one over last night, he pointed out how this movie was shot on 2 different types of cameras, with the normal digital cameras and then with IMAX ones, and they didn't think to fix the aspect ratio, which meant that some shots have the full screen while others have these annoying little black bars at the bottom and top of the film. Which, I don't know, as someone who has had interest in filmmaking and editing and is literally about to major in this field, that kinda pisses me off. Then the fact that this movie decided to try and cram in 1,000,000 different ideas all at once, giving the Decepticons a personality for once, just to then murder off almost all of them. There are just so many reasons you can hate on this movie. The lack of Autobots, too much Anthony Hopkins and Cogman shenanigans to the point it feels like it's just their movie. Ruining the Babeverse lore, which really was not that tight-knit as some people think it is, but at least it was somewhat consistent with like a couple hiccups, having Optimus be in it barely 5 minutes. Like, there is so much shit you can list with this movie on why it's just bad. I think that wraps up my thoughts on some of the sequels I have opinions on, which, heads up, I have a lot more sequels I could talk about that I really don't like. So if you're interested in that, I'm more than willing to make another video. But until then, I think that's gonna do it. I hope you've enjoyed. Take care and peace.